Good morning, fellow grounded travelers.
Morning.
It's Eliz and Derek, and I know a couple of you guys are on. We put out a little message right before this started on the live chat. And if you're on, let us know real quick when you join in the chat where you're kind of dialing in from today, and also where your favorite coffee or tea is from in the world. I'm a huge fan of South American coffee myself, and we just brewed ourselves a French press. We have this like fancy, I think it might be porcelain French press that we got for our wedding, and we use it all the time. And poured it into my San Francisco mug here, and I'm about to take the first sip.
My favorite coffee comes from whatever cup I'm holding at any given time. So that's that.
I love South American coffee though, especially Colombian coffee.
According to This Is Us, Ethiopian coffee is supposed to be phenomenal. So was it Ethiopian?
Was it This Is Us?
There's a whole This Is Us thing where that was like his go-to chat when he was like meeting girls for the first time. Kevin, yes. Something about the altitude.
Yeah. I think that there's a few people on, but we're not seeing anyone active in the chat. Oh, now we got one. Good morning, Alan A.
Al, you were quite active on Walter's World the other day. That was very cool. I'm assuming it was the same Alan A, although I guess there could be two of you.
I knew it was. There could be two of them.
Could be two.
Sure.
There could be two. Yeah, so I guess just to kind of start off.
Good afternoon, Graham.
Graham!
You're dialing in from England. But yeah, everybody let us know where you're at right now.
Hey, Mark Finley. How you doing, bud?
Good morning, Mark. Great to see you guys.
Great to see you.
Yeah, so let us know where you guys are all at. And one of our fun questions this morning was to tell us where in the world your favorite coffee or tea is from. Derek said anywhere. What did you say?
Whatever cup I'm holding. That's my favorite coffee.
I really love coffee from South America, personally. I think it's typically a very good blend. And they know how to make good coffee there. And
yeah.
I also really like tea from China, especially green tea.
So, all right, funny story time, guys, real quick. Gallivanting Gals, welcome.
Good morning, Gallivanting Gals.
Hopefully everything's good down in Indy. Funny story, but when we were in China last year, a little over a year ago, or about a year ago now, last April, we went to, our tour guide took us to this area that was like, government-sponsored tea learning cultural center in Beijing.
I think it's called a tea ceremony that we did.
Well, we got a tea ceremony, but it was at a government-sponsored cultural center.
Yeah,
and
because we needed to make sure that we learned it correctly.
Well, yeah, and it was free, which was nice.
Yeah.
We were already paying for the tour guide. So we got there and we got a full tea service ceremony, which is pretty cool. And actually, we have that all on tape. I was able to record that on my GoPro, so maybe we'll release that on Means to Travel here in the future.
Yeah.
So you all can kind of see it. It's pretty cool. And then at the end, I'll tell you what, they're good salespeople. We bought way more tea than I ever would have imagined buying. Spent more money on tea than I ever thought I would in an entire lifetime. And we'll be drinking that for the next couple of years, I think.
Even though I think it's supposed to expire at some point.
It weakens, except we bought a lot of this one kind of tea called pure tea, Puer, which is a very typical tea in China that's fermented.
And it's supposed to help with digestion.
It's good with digestion and things like that, but it's supposed to get better with age, actually. So it's one of the few teas that you should age. So the longer you keep it, the better it gets, and so we'll see.
So today we are just drinking Starbucks branded coffee, but it is flavored caramel. But we bought it at the store.
It says almond milk.
Nothing too cool.
Yeah, nothing too fancy, except for our French press, which is fancy coffee for me. I grew up in a drip household. So this is when we moved to French press, I was like, oh no, what are we doing? Darlene, welcome. Speaking of my drip household that I grew up in, welcome on.
She's gonna be like, "What are you talking about?"
Drip coffee. That's what we do.
Welcome, Darlene. Derek was just talking about how you guys make drip coffee at home.
All right. So real quick, we have our first question that we can get to, and this will be a fun one from Graham. So here's a question to kick you off. Do you ever get yourselves in a situation where one of you wants to visit a place and the other doesn't? If so, what do you do about that? Go on your own? Deathmatch. No. Depends. I mean, we typically agree on a lot of things. I think that where there's probably been some stresses in the past between the two of us is really around the number of times we've been back to the UK versus other locations. Graham, no offense, being from the UK, but
that's the wrong person to be telling that to.
But
I love the UK.
I love the UK as well, and we've been able to find a pretty good balance of, when we do go to the UK, we try to go to new places, so it's not just going back to London every time. A lot of times there is a London component because we'll be flying in and out of London. But, we've been to Scotland, we've been to Wales, we've been to England, we've been kind of all over, and I think it's been a good experience. My mug actually is from Wales. Our trip there back in 2011?
I think it was after that.
11 maybe. Or 12. It was our first abroad trip since college,
yeah.
Since college that we took together, kind of as adults. And so we went to Wales. We had a great time. We flew into Manchester. We were actually talking about it the other week or whatever with Megan. I think we went on the flight was a 3-3 jet over the Atlantic, which was a little bit nerve-wracking when we first got on.
We were talking about it not the other week. I think it was on our Thursday live chat this week.
Like,
time is such a weird concept right now, isn't it? But if you guys are on our live chat on Thursday, sorry, I'm moving the computer a little bit. If you guys are on our live chat on Thursday, we were talking about the differences in airplanes that you might experience when traveling overseas.
Yeah. And this was one of the only times I've done like a transatlantic flight that was a small jet. It was 3-3, but it was fine. So we landed in Manchester. Yeah. We did the whole Northern Wales thing, Carnarvon and Conway and Snowdonia. We climbed a mountain, which was fun. She did not like it.
I did not. Okay, so this is it because I want to make sure we answer Graham's actual question. So typically we work together to decide which destination we both want to go to and what makes sense for the seasonality. So for the most part, there's a lot of seasonality that gets in consideration within Derek's work. So oftentimes August is the best time for us to travel, and we don't really want to go anywhere super cold in August if we can avoid it, or super, super hot. Yeah. And there can be extremes that time of year depending on what destination you're looking at. So a lot of our destinations have been about the weather at the time of year. So when we went to South America, for example, we went over the Christmas holidays at the end of the year too. So that way we experienced a little bit warmer weather. So we work together on that, and then when it comes to actually deciding what we're going to do at the destination, we often take turns and maybe sometimes compromise. So a good example of what Derek was saying is when we were in Wales, I really wanted to go take the steam train up Mount Snowdon, and we didn't buy tickets far enough in advance, and they were all sold out. Because it was high season, it was August, and lots of families like to do that as a day trip.
And I might have wanted to hike up the mountain.
And Derek wanted to hike up the mountain, and so...
So I talked her into, let's just buy it when we get there.
Talked me into it, we ended up hiking up the mountain. But then I got to do some fun castle tours and stuff that I was interested in on other days. So there is a lot of compromising when you're traveling as a couple, or even if you're just traveling with friends. And one of the things that I always recommend, and especially, I guess, back up, especially if you're traveling with a bigger group, like a big family or something, making sure to talk to everybody in advance of leaving on the trip about what their top priorities are is paramount to the success of the trip. So that way nobody feels slighted, and there doesn't come away at the end of the trip with everyone being like, oh, none of us wanted to do that.
Yeah, that's actually, it's a funny thing that happens a lot of times, is that when you're in a large group trying to make a decision on like what to do as like an activity or something, what you end up finding is that nobody did anything that they wanted to do. It's a weird thing that actually happens out there, and we try our best not to have that happen. It's like, well, do either of us want to do this? If the answer is no, then we're not going to do it. So that's kind of how we approach a lot of things. I would say that, if you look at trip locations, though, we will always, come to some sort of consensus on where we're going. It's not like I'm going to be there like, I don't want to go. Like, that's not going to, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
If that happened, I just wouldn't go. And she'd find another time to go on her own.
Vacation time, especially in the U.S., is too priceless to waste on destinations that you really don't want to go to.
Yeah, typically.
Unless you're visiting family that you really just need to see. But luckily, most of our family members live in nice destinations, so we don't experience that.
Yeah. It's fun, go to my parents and go out on the boat. Her parents live here, so that's pretty easy. And then getting out to Arizona, nice dry heat, so it's always fun.
And we have family in California, Indy, Boston, Florida.
Yeah, all over the place. It's
great. We're very blessed.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it goes down. I mean, we're not playing rock, paper, scissors. We're not flipping coins. It's, we have conversations and we kind of make our list of where we want to get to. I mean, this year we were probably having a little bit more of a debate back and forth with us when we were trying to think about where we might want to go to. Because we were originally thinking about trying to hit up either Australia or Africa this year. And I think we were having a few back and forths on that, because while I do want to go to Australia, it wasn't necessarily at the top of my list on places to go to. I think between that and New Zealand, I'd probably rather go to New Zealand. And then we were also talking about Africa, and so there's a lot of conversations around Africa and which countries in Africa we might want to go to. And, we have our lists, and, right now it's a moot point because we can't travel anyways. But, there's some back and forth on that. So
Back before all the COVID-19 stuff really hit, a lot of Australian airlines were starting to begin to their long-haul flights to the U.S. So, for example, I'm sure this is not happening anymore, but Qantas was starting a direct flight from Brisbane to Chicago. It was supposed to start April 20th. And then I think there's a lot of more direct flights over the past few years from LAX to Australia and stuff like that. So Australia itself, the destination, had really opened up in the U.S. as a little bit easier to get to, fewer layovers, a little bit faster.
Well, and they had done quite a bit of headline catching news with longest flights ever, longest commercial flights ever, from I think London to Sydney or something like that, where they were actually having a bunch of people on the flights and press junkets and stuff like that about what happens to your body on these ultra long haul flights, and trying to figure out ways to they'd have sleep specialists on board to help guide people through guided meditation and exercises and things like that are supposed to help with your circadian rhythm. There's a bunch of great articles out there on some people that went through that might have had like issues before they got on the plane, and it's pretty interesting to read about. But there's been a lot of stuff about Australia recently that's pretty cool.
So that was also a huge reason why we're maybe going to prioritize Australia over somewhere like New Zealand or Africa. But
moot point.
Yeah.
I guess we just
talked for the past 5 minutes about something that's not going to happen, so I hope you guys loved it.
Well, all right, so Mark Finley says, my wife would like to take I realized I said that kind of weird. My wife would like to take an Alaskan cruise someday, and I'm not sold yet. Too many other things we both want to do first. Maybe someday. Mark, I agree. I think an Alaskan cruise would be really cool.
Derek wants to do it immediately.
Well, I want to do a river cruise through Europe, but you keep telling me that we're too young to do that.
Yeah, I think. Okay, so
I would do
we're in our
Viking
early
river
30s.
cruise.
And I believe the average age on those cruises is likely double our age. The river cruises down like the Danube and stuff, which we're old souls. We would be probably in our element there, but definitely wanting to do more city exploring too, I think, while we're still young and sprightly. But
Yeah.
with the Alaskan cruise, I've heard that that's a really good way to see the coastal parts of Alaska. So most of the like islands and just really beautiful scenery in Alaska, based on what I've heard. I have not done a cruise, but I have a lot of friends who have like gone with their parents on Alaskan cruises and stuff. This is what I've heard. Um, the like Sitka, for example. Sitka, Alaska is a beautiful island, and I believe you can only take like puddle jumpers from the mainland to get there, but it could be a stop on the cruise. And also, I think Juneau, the capital, is best visited by cruise ships. So if you are wanting to see certain places and maybe don't want to go on these tiny little airplanes or something like that, it could be a great destination. I was looking at going to Alaska this year. I still might. Very possible I'll go this fall if things change with my best friend because Alaska is. So my best friend's a flight attendant for a U.S. airline, and Alaska is the only state that she hasn't visited. So we'll see. We'll see if Alaska's on our horizon. It's certainly an exciting destination and kind of like that last frontier that gives you that wilderness vibe and explorer vibe that you might not get other places in the U.S.
Well, yeah, I mean, Alaska, I mean, it's one of those places where, you know, the way I've kind of heard about it, and which is kind of interesting, is that when you go out for a drive in Alaska, and in lots of parts of Alaska at least, like, you have to be kind of prepared. You know, that Boy Scout always be prepared thing. Like, you need to, like, keep
I just
with
learned
you.
this week that Derek was not a Boy Scout, though.
Was
by
not
the
a Boy
way.
Scout, but you always have to be prepared because you had to like keep things in your car. Because if your car breaks down in certain parts of Alaska, I mean that's a life or death situation. And if you don't, you can't just like jump in your car and leave. You need to like kind of be prepared, which is kind of interesting. It's a different kind of mindset. But yeah, so Gallivanting Gals, having just found you guys, can you give us a bit of background about how you decided to start the channel and what countries you have visited? Well, this is your channel, so why don't you tell them about your channel, how you decided to start it?
Yeah, it's been a snowball process, if you will. I started a travel blog. I want to say back in like 2015, just because this was back when we lived in New York. We just wanted I wanted a creative outlet for talking about travel, and really what I was loving to do is document our trips and kind of summarize them. And then what I realized is that I personally love consuming travel media, especially on YouTube, and learning about how other people travel. And I, from that passion, kind of became a resource for friends and family and decided that I wanted to pursue that particular pathway with what I do. So when creating Means to Travel, I was really at first talking about our trips, but now it's kind of pivoted to being able to reach a broader audience, talking about how to help people travel more who mean to travel more. So specifically, the kind of play on words with the word means is talking about people who want to travel more, basically mean to travel more, travel meaningfully, and find the means to do so. And the YouTube I actually started a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, just because I feel like it's such a fantastic medium in terms of it's like the second largest search engine in the entire world. So being able to connect with people while they're searching out information for their trip, it made total sense to go on YouTube.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it bears mentioning that Eliz worked in media for a long time.
Yeah, specifically digital media and social media.
So when we moved to Chicago, Liz made the transition to kind of full time with her business around Means to Travel, with the blog and YouTube and whatnot, and so it's been it's gone beyond just being a passion project, and it's really become her business
and mission in life, really. I love helping people travel.
Yeah, it's fun.
Even if they're doing it from the couch right now. Like us.
Yeah. So, getting to the second part of the question, though, about countries that we've been to. So, we've been to, obviously, England, most of the UK. We've been to, not Northern England, but we've been to England, Wales, Scotland.
You mean Northern Ireland?
Yeah, we've never, I thought that's what I said.
No. Yes.
She's been to Ireland. I've not been to Ireland. Yeah. We've been to France. We've been to Spain. I've been to Morocco. We've been to
Derek's
Italy.
been a few places I haven't been because of work.
Well, that was school. Then I went to Morocco. We went to China. I've been to Hong Kong and Singapore and Japan.
Been to Germany and Switzerland.
I've been to Germany and Switzerland. And then what else? What other? South America. We've been to Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay. I've been to Mexico briefly on a cruise, but I don't really count it because I went and I got drunk on Coronas before getting back onto a boat. So
I've also been to Mexico, but not spent too much time there.
We really want to get down to Mexico City actually for a trip. Spend some time there. Mexico. Part of my family's from Mexico, so I find I have a very close connection there, and I want to get down and see more of it and get to know it better. I've been to Belize on that cruise, so I don't really quite count it.
Anyway, we've been to a lot of places. Sorry, this is kind of becoming a laundry list. Canada, too.
Canada. We got engaged in Canada.
Yeah, we did.
Quebec City, if anybody wants to go to a place that feels like Europe, but it's in North America, for any of the U.S. or Canadian-based people, highly recommend Quebec City.
But between the two of us, we've touched 5 continents. Wait, I don't know. Anyway, I think we have a pretty good span of where we've been and can speak to a lot of different regions, which is coming in handy on these live chats, I think.
Yeah, and kind of the thing, we wish that we had been to more places, honestly, at this time, but as Eliz was kind of mentioning earlier, with my job, it was always, it's always been kind of a one vacation a year kind of thing, and so we typically will stack our vacation around a holiday, so we get about 10 days off, which is enough time to really get to Europe and kind of explore Europe a bit. So that's it's been fun. Belgium and Amsterdam and the Netherlands. We've been to those two as well.
Yep.
She asked where all we've been
to. I know.
Answering the questions.
There's just it's such a long list. It's kind of hard to
a lot of Western Europe.
Yeah.
Like none of Eastern Europe. So I guess I'll take it to where I actually want to go to, which is what have we not done. So we haven't done the Middle East,
right.
And we want to do that. Specifically, I think Petra in Jordan. We'd like to do Israel. I think Dubai would be pretty cool.
I do need to research. There's a very specific order you're supposed to do things in if you're planning on going to Israel, and what we have not done
I think the answer is Israel last, because you can run into some issues with an Israeli stamp in your passport.
Yeah, or at least get a new pass. Like if you go to Israel first, you can't just go straight to somewhere else. Sometimes you would probably need to get another passport first.
Maybe. But yeah, we had to look into that. And then there's also more of South America, the northern stretch of South America we really want to get to. So like Peru and Peru, Colombia, some of the other places. Cartagena is supposed to be beautiful. And then I think I said Eastern Europe, and
we want to go everywhere though. I don't really know why Derek's just listing off
just like major regions.
Because everywhere's on our list.
Yeah,
would love it.
Major regions that we really want to experience.
All right, so I hope we answered that question. Then Gallivanting Gazelle said they have river cruises that are geared towards younger crowds. Oh, that's good to know, actually. I know that you guys are awesome Gen X travelers, and I'd love to just understand which river cruises are available that attract the younger ones. That'd be really cool. Derek's aunt and uncle were going to take his grandmother on a river cruise this year, but I believe that is now postponed. But we were looking forward to hearing about that experience.
Yeah, we were actually when we heard about it, we were quite jealous. We were like, we want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, gotta keep people dreaming. Then Mark Finley, Gallivanting Gals, is saying they think Alaska is an RV destination. We planned it when we had our motorhome. Oh, that's so cool! But we sold it because we were too busy in Europe. But someday we will do it again when we buy another RV. We are so fascinated by RV travel. I think it intimidates both me and Derek about who would actually drive an RV. But I think the idea of it um, is so cool if you really want to see a lot of different places to just be able to basically pick up your mobile hotel and go everywhere. Derek's cousin actually outfitted an RV down in Indiana, and she and her husband have 4 sons, 4 young boys. And they
Quite the brood.
Yeah, they do big family trips to like Florida and stuff like that.
Yeah, and well, it helps that he's very handy. He's an engineer, so he can kind of outfit things, fix things.
She's very handy too. I want to give her a lot of credit. She does a lot of work.
She's handy, but he's like an engineer, so he can like fix engines. He can that's what he does. He makes like truck engines, so like he knows what he's doing. Me, if it broke down, I'd have to take it to a guy and hope he wasn't ripping me off to get it all fixed. Yeah. But what I really have enjoyed is a lot of people are taking these like Sprinter vans, like these like Ford F 450s or whatever, and are turning them into, I don't know if it's a 450, whatever it is, the Class 6 car or whatever, or Class 3 trucks, and they're turning these into like really cool like homes that are smaller and more compact than the typical like RV would be, but kind of have a lot of the amenities and stuff, like a little bed and a kitchen area and all this stuff. So that seems like a pretty cool way to do it, and I've enjoyed watching these people kind of like outfit these things and stuff on YouTube, which is pretty cool.
Graham, if you're still on, I'm curious if people do RV road trips in the UK. Let us know. I feel like it's such a popular thing in America, but I don't know what the popularity is in other countries, and I'm curious now.
I think it's relatively common. I know one of the YouTubers that I follow that does like the van life type stuff does it with did that in the UK.
Cool. All right, so Gallivanting Gals is saying, I think the biggest cruise lines for younger folks is U River Cruises. All right, we'll have to check that out. That's going to be really a great option, I think. Oh yeah, and they're also saying that lots of folks do RV trips in Europe. I knew that along in the continent, it is pretty common, especially in the summertime. A lot of families will do that. Makes total sense that you could bring your dogs and any pets.
It's really big in Germany too. I think in Germany a lot of people have RVs.
Yeah. Derek knows a lot more than most of us, I think, about auto trends. It's something that he researches a lot for work. So.
But yeah, no, it's cool.
Graham saying, thank you, Graham, for answering my question. All right, RV road trip. Sure they do. I think caravans are a little more popular, but for sure people are converting Ford Transits into small RVs, mainly because it's a lot cheaper, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And they do some pretty cool stuff with that, so it's a lot of fun. I mean, some people that I knew from like high school have done it, where like now they live out of a van, but it's not like they were living out of a van. It's like they've transformed this van into like a, pretty cool like little house. Basically it's a mini house on wheels, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So we have a new question. Hi Jim, great to see you. And he is saying that have we had to cancel any trips? So we actually didn't have anything particularly booked right now. What we had done was we went to Amsterdam on March 8th or 9th, and then had to fly back as soon as the European travel ban got implemented, before we had to go into a 14-day quarantine. So we flew back on the 13th of March. So that was kind of the bigger trip that we had right now. What we had not booked yet was a lot of things in May. We hadn't been booking too many things too far in advance just because of Derek's work schedule. So in May we were supposed to go to our friend's wedding in Massachusetts and out to Tucson for my cousin, who's basically like my sister, her high school graduation. So we are uncertain what is happening with those right now, and kind of we were planning on using. We had Delta Companion Pass tickets through one of our credit cards. We were going to use those for one of them, and I've been monitoring Delta's communications. And just this morning, Delta released a really, um, uh, like, I guess, well detailed email from their CEO, kind of listing off what the process is for booking and rebooking on that particular airline. Can't speak to other airlines right now, but I even summarized it in my Instagram story this morning. It's like, if you are needing to rebook anything that was already booked to be happening right now, you have 2 years that you can rebook your tickets, and basically, like, by the end of 2022, you can fly there. I don't know if they're giving any credits at the moment, but the fact that you have 2 years to redo your vacation, hopefully you can make that work. Then there's also companion passes. So my companion pass with Delta, I get one a year. It expires in August, and they, I believe, are extending those benefits to later deadlines. And there's just a couple other things that I think that particular airline is being really flexible with. I'm hoping that American Airlines and United have already or will follow suit really quickly. But I can't speak to some of the lower cost carriers. I think they're acting, like they're responding in slightly different ways.
Yeah. So we don't know. We haven't really researched too broadly on what everybody's doing. We typically fly Delta and American are what we spend most of our time in the air on. And what I'll say is that when we were in Amsterdam and we were kind of coming back unexpectedly, the way we had gotten there is we'd flown there, flying standby via a friend of ours as a flight attendant was able to give us basically buddy passes so we could fly standby there and back. And when this whole thing happened with the travel restrictions being put into place and we had to kind of scramble to get back super super quick, I have a lot of miles on American Airlines, so
he also has a high status on
and I have a high status on American Airlines because I've last year I flew around the world like 3.5 times or something like that on American. And so we had this opportunity to then use miles to book us seats coming back, and so that was great. It was very simple to do, and what ended up happening though is we ended up going on a different airline, the standby airline, on our way back because we were able to get on to an earlier flight, and the American flight just kept getting pushed back. So we were concerned that it wasn't going to actually take off.
Well, we were concerned it wasn't going to take off to land before the midnight deadline that our president had set for us to get back.
I was more concerned that it wasn't going to take off.
I guess that
generally.
Too, but...
So because we would have landed in on time, would have been fine. So my concern was that it wasn't going to take off. So we ended up being able to fly standby. We actually got into business class with that, which was awesome. And then just getting to your point about getting refunds, then, basically I then had to go through American Airlines to get a refund for all the miles and the money paid for the tickets back because I had to cancel those. And luckily, because of my status, I was able to get everything refunded and no charges or anything like that because I'm executive platinum. But I will say...
a separate way to call in. I want to just make that really clear because I don't have status, and I know that when I listen to Derek talk about it, it's like, oh well, I mean, he didn't have to wait on hold hours and out. I mean, he didn't have to wait on hold for hours just to talk to somebody. They kind of have like a separate if you're this status customer service.
Yeah, yes, that is true. I didn't have to wait days. I had to wait 2 hours. I think the first time, maybe I was on hold 45 minutes the second time to do it. And I still haven't actually called. I need to call them back again because I think our tickets on that were 110,000 miles per ticket to come back. So 220,000 miles in total. And I only got 110,000 of the miles back. So I need to call them and see why they didn't refund me all of my miles. They should be refunding all of it. So
that's a good catch. I didn't realize that. But yeah, I think they were doing what they could to help us on the phone, but you could tell there was a lot going on for them.
Yeah, and so we haven't been all that stressed to get the miles back. I know I'll get them back, so I'm just kind of waiting, let them work through all their other backlog of things that they're working through. Because at the end of the day, it's not gonna. I can't use the miles anyways right now, so there's no reason that I need them in my account, just so I can look at them and say, "Ooh, gee, I've got them." So kind of
look at these.
Yeah, gonna call them probably next week and figure it out. All right, wait. So we've got some stuff.
Oh, hello from San Francisco. I got my San Francisco mug. Hi, Katie Smith.
Katie.
Welcome.
Welcome. How you doing? All right. So camping is really popular in the UK, especially for families. Tara and I go on a couple times a year when the weather is good. And are there any good campsites? And I mean tents, not RVs, in the U.S. So yeah, I mean there's a
tons.
Camping is super popular in the U.S. I'd say that if you want to go to a campsite in the U.S., I mean any of the national parks are pretty good.
I have a recommendation actually.
I was gonna say Moab.
Yes. So Derek was not with me on this trip. I went out to visit my best friend who lives in Salt Lake City, and then we drove with a lot of other friends down to the Moab area. I want to say this was in early 2019, and we stayed at a campground right along Cane Creek Boulevard along the Colorado River. It was the most stunning camping experience I think anyone could remotely ask for. The river itself flows a lot, and then the canyon surrounding is just, I mean, it's red rock. The sunsets and sunrises are beautiful.
Yeah.
The actual campground itself has all the, amenities, porta potties, that sort of thing. And there's a lot of great community there. The actual weekend that we went was over Cinco de Mayo. And they had a small music festival down at one of the campsites for, I think it was just celebrating women at the time. Lots of female campers, but it was just kind of a fun party and also just stunning. So I think it's called Cane Creek Campground. I'll put it in the chat, but highly recommend that. There's so many options though in the U.S.
Yeah, so what I'd say about Moab, because Graham might not be familiar since he's not from here, but Moab in southern Utah, or is it southern Utah? I don't know.
Sure.
South of Salt Lake City, Utah. It's
over by
it's
Arches and
place.
Canyonlands National Parks.
That's what I was trying to say. It's by two national parks, Canyonlands and Arches. Both of them are beautiful parks with stunning kind of sandstone arches or whatever it is that are really cool to go photograph. Graham, I know you're in photography, so it'd be a great place to go. You kind of wake up before dawn, get a headlamp, and go hiking, get up, and then you can do the sunrise over the arches and stuff, which is pretty spectacular. We didn't quite wake up early enough to go do that too much. We went and we did at there's a place called Balanced Rock within Arches that we were able to get to for sunrise, which was pretty cool. I will say that going out somewhere like that though, where there's no light and it's like pitch black out, is a different experience, and any noise that you hear kind of makes you wonder about what the heck is going on. But
we ended up
it's
buying
pretty cool.
Headlamps. So if you are going, this is kind of a general rule for any sort of sunrise photography that you want to do at national parks here in the U.S. You might want to make sure that you have flashlights or headlamps because you're going to need to get out of your car and likely hike somewhere, and especially in the desert Southwest, there are scary nighttime creatures to be aware of. So be sure that you're being safe and watching your footing, first of all, but also watching for any critters on the ground, such as scorpions and snakes, and making sure you have all the light that you need.
Yeah, but it's really cool. Highly recommend it. It gets really, really hot. Lots of tourists in that area. I was actually really surprised by the amount of both, was it German or French? Was there much of French? I think there was a
lot of French tourists. I don't
know why there were so many French tourists.
Other times, there's a lot of Italians tourists who ride in coach buses around.
Yeah.
But the French tourists looked like they were kind of doing it themselves. So I don't know.
But good times, a lot of fun, and then there's also a good state park over there. Dead Horse
Dead Horse Point.
Dead Horse Point.
Beautiful state park.
It's gorgeous, and then it's not just the bend, which is really stunning to photograph, but then there's also potash mining that takes place over there as well, which is like a specialized salt mine that they have, which has these stunning colors that come out of the as it's evaporating the water and whatnot. So it's pretty cool. Highly recommend Moab. It's stunning.
Yeah. So I just want to circle back. I know Mark is saying I prepaid everything for a 2-week trip to Europe, including trains. Normally, very smart to prepay everything. So far, I've rescheduled the plane tickets and most of the hotels without penalty for July, but still waiting on the train refunds. So I have one story about getting a train refund, but I don't know. I don't think it's really applicable. So I booked through Trainline versus on like Rail Europe directly or something like that. And the reason why I had to apply for a refund was because the actual train itself didn't run on the day that we had booked. So we were supposed to go from London to Brighton that day, and they just shut down the railroad on that. It was a Sunday. So I was able to apply for a refund and say, hey, trains didn't run, and I think it took like 45 days to get my money back.
Yeah, you had to like keep your ticket and mail it in, like the physical copy and stuff too.
Yeah,
like,
you had to mail in the tickets from the U.S. to England. It was
so it's a little bit more involved, a little bit more like hoops to jump through and whatnot.
So I don't know what the trains are doing right now in terms of COVID. I hope they're being as lenient as the airlines, because that would be a good business practice.
Yeah. So gallivanting gals. So do you guys use points and miles also? Yes, we do. So
I believe we were talking about this with Megan Morris on the Thursday chat, but a lot of our credit card strategy is around point accumulation.
Yeah. So we're always trying to use the best, value credit card basically for whatever we're buying. So, on Amazon, we're using like an unlimited card that gets us like 1.5 points. On any restaurants, we're using either the Chase Reserve credit card, which gets us 3 points, or we're using the Amex Platinum card. There's a whole ton of things around that.
Airline bookings. Yeah. There's a specific travel credit card that kind of gets you the most points per dollar spent. And I'm always asking Derek, because he's kind of that expert with the travel hack. Yeah,
for flights and things like that, we're always using the Amex Platinum card, and so it's yes, we do that. And actually, when we went on our honeymoon to South America, we largely used points on that trip.
For all the hotels.
And the flights. So we flew business class there, so we used points there and back. So I think we flew down on American and back on Delta or something like that with points. On the hotels, we used a lot of points because we were staying at Hyatt, so I'd taken out a Hyatt credit card to help us kind of credit hack that.
One specific thing that was brought up on the Walter's World live stream yesterday that I know a lot of you guys were on, so thanks again for coming to join us here. We love those, love them. Was that it's good to figure out which hotel chain to develop points with, when you're traveling domestically, to like accumulate free nights and stuff based on what's available in the destination you want to redeem them at. So in South America, it's very different than in Europe, where Europe, I would say, has a lot of great options for like Hilton. South America does not have as many Hilton options. It's definitely a Hyatt spot. Very Hyatt.
There's a lot of Hyatts down there, and really nice ones in Buenos Aires, where we started out our honeymoon. We stayed at the Palacio Duhau, which is a like world-class Hyatt location. The Grand Hyatt in Mendoza was very nice. Mm-hmm. The Hyatt in Montevideo was very nice.
So basically what you'll want to do is, if you're doing points accumulation with hotel chains, in order to be able to redeem them at really special, very nice hotels while you're on vacation, say you travel every week for work, say you're a consultant or something like that, and you have different options of whether to stay at a Hyatt or a Hilton or a Marriott or whatever, make sure that you just know what your preferred redemption hotel is.
Yeah, I'd say that the other thing is that, I think it is important to try to kind of like keep to one if you can, because if you do get the status, it really opens you up to a lot of nice like extras that can save you a lot of money on your trips. Like free breakfast and things like that, which can be really nice. So I think it's important. I think it's good to kind of have a mindful attitude towards it. We do like staying at boutique hotels, when there's not a good chain option that we
I
can get
just like
points
staying
for.
at boutique hotels generally because I love the fact that they exist and I love supporting them. But yes, also what
But if we
Derek is
can
saying.
benefit and get, free food, free whatever by
Yeah.
staying at a chain, and it's nice and it's in a location that we like, we will do that.
Also, if you book directly with boutique hotels online, sometimes you will get free food. You just have to make sure that you're checking like, okay, if I'm going to book with hotels.com with this boutique hotel, maybe I'll get a free night at another time I book with hotels.com.
Yeah.
Versus if I book directly with the boutique, maybe I can save a little money on the nightly rate plus get a free breakfast.
Yeah.
Weigh those options because usually you can have those types of choices.
I mean, so like the place that we stayed at in Amsterdam, actually, if you book online and depending on the length of your stay in Amsterdam, once you get to a certain night threshold, you get extra freebies that they throw in, like a free river tour or canal tour of Amsterdam, free meals, things like if you're a returning traveler. So if you book a return trip and stay with them again, you suddenly get free breakfast every morning, which I think is like a
all of a sudden we got
value.
It was actually 39 euros 39 euros and maybe for two people, but
Yeah.
I mean it was a wonderful spread.
Yeah.
So you could kind of choose. It wasn't like the continental breakfast that you might see at hotels in the US where you might get like a toaster and some jam or whatever.
Yeah.
It was
Lots
very
of bread
elaborate.
though. Lots of like croissants, lots of cakes, and I
But they
think
also
there's
had
apple
meats
pie
and cheeses and
Yeah.
and great coffee.
Yeah.
So it was great.
I
And then we
think you
stayed
could
at
even make your own like bellinis and stuff, but we weren't drinking at 8 a.m. when we were having breakfast.
yeah and there was eggs like they had a person making omelets and made to order eggs and stuff. And to be specific, we stayed at the Hotel Asteria in Amsterdam, which is right in the Canal District. Okay, so I want to make sure that we don't miss anybody's questions because I think we've just been rambling too much. So Jim Schaefer is saying American and United have been great. Okay, that's awesome to hear. But other airlines have been harder to get refunds. Okay, well,
And he's still chasing refunds from Fiji, Emirates, and others.
Those would be really hard, I'm sure, because you're also dealing with, international customer service.
Although Singapore Airlines has been great, so that's good.
Good. I'm wondering too, like Emirates and Fiji might not be part of some of these alliances, but perhaps if
Emirates is, I think, part of something, but I don't remember which one.
yeah, I don't know. But like, let's say I think Singapore Airways has an alliance with one of our domestic carriers, so perhaps you can talk to some of our domestic customer service people
So,
too.
Alan, put this in the queue for discussion topics. Would love to hear about your wine arbitrage theory.
All right,
We'll talk about that
table
later.
that
We'll
for
table
one second,
that.
but everybody stay tuned. Derek's wine arbitrage theory has been very much highly requested. I'm gonna let him just roll with it. And then hello from San Francisco from Katie Smith. Then Jim Schaefer again was saying American will give you the miles back if you have your record locator. Awesome. And your record locator should be in the confirmation email that you got with your ticket.
Okay. Jim Schaefer saying, last note on refunds. WAP Post has a nice article on everyone's frustrations. Confusing coronavirus refund policies frustrate travelers. Okay, we'll have to give that a read.
Yeah, that's nice that they put together a summary. I'm sure it's good for people that are just really trying to scavenge around for what to do.
Mark is saying, so far they're giving refunds for tickets purchased through April 30th. If the dates are moved through May, I should be able to get my money back.
Good.
That's good. Good
I'm
luck.
assuming you're talking about the trains, and that's wonderful. Yeah.
So Gallivanting Gals uses a lot of points and miles as well, and they keep a spreadsheet to help keep up to date with all the cards to use for maximum points. And believe it or not, our IHG card, which is Holiday Inn, we're able to get over the water bungalows in Tahiti
That's
pretty cool.
Incredible.
That's really neat.
I believe IHG has been growing a lot and acquiring a lot of different smaller hotel chains too, and so they're becoming one of the big players.
Isn't IHG Intercontinental Hotel Group or something like that?
Yeah, and I don't want to misspeak. I think they maybe just acquired Kimpton recently. I could be making that up. But anyway,
yeah, no, that's awesome.
And
under
the IHG umbrella for sure.
Overwater bungalows is a bucket list item for me. I'd love to do that.
We have several friends that did those types of things in
on their honeymoons and stuff.
Yeah, honeymoon. Cool. And then 12 nights for free and Delta miles for Air France business class to get there. Wow. Okay, they're also saying they also love the buy 4 nights and get the 5th free with Marriott. Yeah, and that's a really good deal because whenever, for example, I book with hotels.com or something, I have to acquire 10 hotel nights in order to get one for free. So being able to get the 5th free with a hotel chain is really, I mean, that's a 100% better.
Yeah, and just getting back to ISG real quick, but Intercontinental is great because the Intercontinental in like Hong Kong and stuff, those are awesome hotels. Highly recommend them.
Yeah.
And I was not a member of theirs until I was checking into the Intercontinental in Hong Kong, and they're like, "Do you have a number?" And I'm like, "No." They're like, "If you sign up, you get like 2 free drinks at the bar." And I was like, "Sign me up." You know, I'm always looking for free drinks.
Thank you for fact checking me, by the way. I just saw the Gallivanting Gal said that, yes, Intercontinental and Kimpton. I'm glad I didn't misspeak. I was pretty certain, but not 100%. Kimpton hotels are beautiful. We actually stayed in one when we went to Seattle last fall.
Yeah.
And have
unique.
always enjoyed the unique interior design that you are most likely going to experience within a Kimpton hotel. Okay, so we've kind of gone through a lot of these, which thanks for hanging in there with us. Hi, Karen Mack. Thanks for joining. Good morning to you. Or maybe good afternoon for most people at this point. Okay, and then Ruth Armstrong saying at the Western Wild or Rustic National Parks, are there a fair number of international travelers? Yes. I would say that
probably over 50%.
In my experience, it's over 50%. So when we went to, specifically, it was the Mesa Arch in Canyonlands last August. I kind of was joking about this, but it's true. It felt like a United Nations. It was like travelers from Asia, travelers from Europe, travelers from South America, and us. It was really, and everybody was kind of coming together to enjoy the beauty of nature there. I think the national parks have done a fantastic job at marketing themselves abroad as a destination for people when they want to visit the United States. And so it's kind of become a bucket list to visit, especially a lot of the Western ones. Canyonlands, Arches, Zion, Bryce Canyon. I mean, those are all just...
Well, they're iconic, too. Like, just, you know, if you think back to, like, the Westerns and stuff, you know, a lot of people think of, like, the Westerns as, like, an American construct. And so, you know, seeing things like, you know, the arches and stuff is just something that they think of as distinctly American.
Yeah.
Which is funny because a lot of Westerns were actually filmed in Italy because that's where the term spaghetti Western comes from. But
I did not know that. But I have been to Tombstone, Arizona, which a lot of Westerns were filmed around that area too. It's kind of like a big set. And there's also Old Tucson, which really is a set, if you will. You can go to Old Tucson, which is really close to the city of Tucson, and basically take all these pictures and pretend that you're in the Wild West.
Yeah, but I'd say probably the biggest challenge for an international traveler in just the U.S. generally would probably be if there's any sort of like language barrier. So not speaking English and coming to the United States would be quite difficult because, I mean...
in those areas,
let's be real. I mean, in America, I mean, most people speak English poorly. No, I'm just kidding. Most people speak English and maybe some Spanish, but, you know, that's really, you know, we're not like people in Amsterdam where they speak English, German, Flemish, and other languages. You know, it's not, you know, we're not that. So so that's probably the hardest thing for, if I had to guess. I don't know. I'm not an international
When we were at Canyonlands, Derek started bonding over a fellow photographer, bonding with a fellow photographer there who was also shooting with Sony's. And that person spoke pretty good English. I believe they were from South Korea.
Yeah, they're
But
Korean.
his friend there did not speak any English, and it was such a bummer because Derek really wanted to talk to him about about photography and Instagram and stuff like that, and we just weren't able to form that connection with that particular guy because you know English wasn't in his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And we don't speak Korean.
And yeah, we don't speak Korean. All I know is like cherry.
I think using usually we will use Google Translate, but we hadn't downloaded the Korean to English translation in advance. Which if you ever visit somewhere, definitely download. Like when we visited China, for example, we could use Google Translate to translate and show somebody like, hey, this is what I'm trying to say. Like, where's the bathroom?
The important part there, though, is if you want them to be able to communicate back with you, is if you're going to somewhere that doesn't use like the English keyboard, make sure you download the keyboard before you go for that language. So we had the Mandarin keyboard so that we could hand our phone to somebody, they could type it to us, and we could see the English translation back. The same would be for Cyrillic or anything like that. If you're going to Russia, make sure you have that keyboard downloaded, which would be a pretty helpful tip.
Yes.
Okay, Katie Smith is saying, what's your favorite place to visit in the U.S. and favorite international location? I know that's a big question. That is a big question. Why don't you start? I volunteer you.
Volunteer. I think favorite place to visit in the U.S. Is probably Tucson. It's so different than here in Chicago, and I do have so many great memories there because my family lives there. I think it's definitely a beautiful place. There's tons of beautiful places here in the U.S. though, so it's hard to choose. International destination, my favorite city is London, but country is Scotland. I absolutely love Scotland despite the food not being the absolute best. But I love the people, I love the scenery, and I just love the culture there and the history.
Eliz was actually on a podcast that asked her that question and said, what's your favorite country? And she said Scotland.
And then they asked me, which country has the worst food?
And she said Scotland. So that tells you how much she loves it, that despite... She's not into fried foods and heavy foods, so that was, it's not her cup of tea.
Paris is also a top city for me as well. It's
and they do
growing
have phenomenal
on me.
Food.
I think London, though, is the place that I would want to live, and Paris is the place that I would be fine to keep visiting over and over again.
Yeah, and I guess for me, favorite place to visit in the United States would be New York City, actually. We lived in New York for 8 years. Loved, living there was fine, but actually I find that going back to visit is way better. I really enjoy going back and being like, I was saying this, the last time we were there for like an extended period of time, just kind of hanging out. We were eating bagels down by like the Flatiron Building, just kind of in the park. It was beautiful outside. The sun was shining. There's like white fluffy clouds. We're having our coffee, eating our bagel with schmear, and
I miss bagels.
So good. And I'm just like, why didn't we never do this when we lived here? Like we never just like got bagels and went and hung out in a park. We were always just like kind of go with work.
Too busy doing our laundry when we had time off.
Yeah, so little time off that we had to do laundry and chores that you hate doing. So going back and visiting is actually really nice. And I'll say that New York's a phenomenal place for photography if you're into photography. So, there's just so many things to photograph. It has a phenomenal skyline. Go over to Brooklyn and catch the sunset on the Manhattan skyline. It's gorgeous. Walk across the Brooklyn Bridge, eat some pizza, get some bagels. Yeah. If you want some more expensive food, Michelin-starred restaurants everywhere. It's pretty phenomenal. So I'd say New York's my favorite place to visit now that I don't live there.
It's my least favorite subway system, though. Not because it's not. It can get you anywhere. It's just so dirty. It's really dirty.
So Chicago, but. And then internationally, I'd say probably my favorite international place to visit. That's hard. I love them all. I had a great time in Buenos Aires, actually.
Yeah.
I would totally go back to Buenos Aires, and I'd love to just spend a month down there, just kind of like hanging out, visiting, and really getting to know the city, because I think it has a lot to offer. And we didn't spend quite enough time there the last time. I think we were there for 4 days, something like that, and definitely need more time there.
So just for everybody's background, because I know we have a few new folks on, Derek and I live in Chicago. That's where we are right now, at our house. And I think that's why everybody's asking us all these Chicago questions. So let's get into them. Okay, so Mark Finley's asking, what's your favorite museum in Chicago? Mine is the MSI, the last...
Museum of Science and Industry.
Yes. The last time I was at the Field Museum, it was too much like a children's museum. Interesting.
Okay.
So I have two favorite museums, but we have so many world-class museums here in Chicago. It's really hard to choose from. I love the Shedd Aquarium, especially the Oceanarium, because it's built with like these big glass windows that overlook kind of right on Lake Michigan. So the actual dolphin tank, the dolphin pool and everything, where the beluga whales are and stuff, kind of looks like it just expands outwards, and it's so beautifully done. And I just love underwater life generally. I think it's a really great museum, and they do it well. I also really love the Art Institute.
Yeah.
I think they have some famous Monets and a lot of other terrific artists, and so just visiting there always makes me happy.
One of our favorite inside jokes took place at the Art Institute. We were walking around, and there's this very odd like trio of people walking around that looked like they kind of stepped out of like a Victorian painting or something like that. Like the women were wearing like these kind of bizarre outfits. The guy was like looked very like straight-laced and thin guy with like a suit and stuff, and they're like walking around talking about different things, and it just seemed like a really odd group. And they get to this one exhibit that was a little bit more experiential. Yeah, my shirt. Okay. So they get to this like one exhibit that's basically just like rubble. It's like broken concrete. And one of the ladies goes, "This is just astounding. This is art. This is what's happening in New York right now." And I was just like, I just died laughing.
We all just we looked at each other and we were like, wow.
She was really intrigued. And if she's on, welcome. We'd love to learn more about you. But
I think
it was kind of
I think she's not on this. She's
probably not on this. But
she was on some fun herbs that day.
But yeah, no, it was pretty funny. And so now we always, every time we see someone, we're like, this is art. But yeah, no, the Museum of Science and Industry is a great one, though. That's probably the first museum I ever went to here in Chicago, on a field trip from Indiana. They have a pretty cool exhibit there where you can kind of go down into, as if you're going into like a mine operation, which is kind of fun. You have to wear a hard hat and everything. It's kind of cool. So I highly recommend that. And I would say that while I'm not I've never been to the Shedd Aquarium. The Shedd Aquarium is a phenomenal location.
You've never been?
Nope.
You guys, Derek's got to go to the Shedd Aquarium.
So
I'm just like astounded.
Yeah, no, you never took me. So I've never been, but it's a phenomenal location. I've been around it because it's a great location to catch the sunset here in Chicago, because it kind of juts off into Lake Michigan.
Yeah, it's a tiny little peninsula that you can
kind of like turn left and you look and you have the entire skyline of Chicago kind of fanning out before you. And so go out there with a tripod and your camera and just take like stunning photos of Chicago. Yeah. It's like the best place to do it. And what I will say is that it gets super windy. So Graham, if you end up going, make sure you have a good sturdy tripod.
And it can be cold. It can feel a lot colder right on the lake out there.
Because of all the wind coming off of it.
Because the lake.
So layers are important.
Yeah. Hi Eric Brown, thanks so much for joining. He's saying he saw us all in Walter's World's live chat yesterday. Excited to check us out. Well, welcome Sarah. I'm Eliz, Derek, and I guess I'm going over this, but a couple times, but we're here in Chicago chatting about travel. So glad to have everybody on today. This is really exciting. We are drinking coffee. Hope everybody's got their coffee or tea to start their Sunday morning. And if you're Graham, I guess you can start drinking because you're in the UK. Yeah, and Graham actually, he's a photographer too, and has a great Instagram handle. And he showed us a great spot to photograph London from. Um, and it was right by Tower Bridge. I think it was called Butler's Wharf. And so we went at sunset when we were in London last,
Yeah.
what was it, November.
Yeah, it's just east of Tower Bridge, so you kind of get that into your sunset. And we were actually super lucky because it was a full moon, and then if you turned east, the full moon was rising right above Canary Wharf, which is where all the tall buildings in London are. So we got some really cool shots of like the full moon kind of rising right around there, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah, it was a very special spot.
Yeah,
so thank
we
you for
lucked
that
out.
tip. If anybody else has good photography locations, feel free to add them in the comments too. I don't know how many people are photographers versus just avid travelers here though.
Yeah.
Okay, so important burning question: New York or Chicago style pizza? For me, it's New York pizza, even though I'm born and raised in Chicago.
They're two totally different things. So
They are.
my whole thing on like New York versus Chicago pizza is that New York pizza is I mean it's something that has stood the test of time. I mean you can still go to New York today, get a dollar slice.
It's definitely a lot closer
phenomenal.
to traditional Italian style pizza too.
And it's quick, it's easy. You fold it up, eat a slice, walk away, maybe have a Coke, and it's great. Um, and you can grab it like that, which is the best part of it, right? So you just grab and go. With Chicago, it's like a whole event. Like it's an actual like you need to know an hour in advance that you're going to be hungry and that you want to eat food, right? You can't just like, oh no, I'm hungry, I want to eat now, because it takes 45 minutes to bake. You gotta wait to be seated. You order a small pizza, and that's enough for like 10 people. And it's thick. It's a thing, right? But I like them both. But they're two totally different things, and they scratch different itches.
Yeah, so the important thing to know about Chicago style pizza, if you've never had it before, is honestly, you just need one slice. Like, if you think that you're gonna walk in and order a large pizza and eat that thing by yourself, you better have not eaten in a week. Because it is the most filling thing you will ever experience, especially if you order from Gino's East, the sausage pizza, because it's not like sausage crumbles. It's an entire sausage patty it's like a layer of sausage patty on the pizza. So the pizza itself too is super thick. Just that's a lot of bread, a lot of cheese, just a lot of goodness.
Yeah, it's really good.
If you're ordering a sausage pizza at Gino's East, one slice.
Yeah, but I'll say that if I'm going to recommend a place for people to go to here in Chicago for pizza and they've never been, I mean, you can go to Gino's East, Lou Malnati's, Giordano's. Those are kind of like the famous ones that have multiple locations. They even have locations in different cities. But for me, I want to go to a place where there's like one location and that's it, and that would be Pequod's here in Chicago, and that's
what all the locals order.
That's a pretty phenomenal pizza place, and I highly recommend it.
So that's in Lincoln Park.
They'll deliver kind of anywhere though.
Yeah, and you can order for pickup, I believe too.
Yeah. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. Fun herbs. And
Eric's saying he's never eaten real Chicago pizza before, only tried it at the airport. Well, it might have been similar experience at the airport. Gallivanting Gals is
but nice and fresh is kind of you want to make sure it's fresh, not that it's like been sitting under a heat lamp. So if you get an opportunity, definitely go to like a real Chicago pizza place, get it fresh and made to order.
Yeah.
But there's another place actually if you're looking for good kind of like a pizza experience in Chicago that's different, and that's a place called Chicago Oven Grinders. I think that's what it's something oven grinders here in Chicago. And basically what they do is they make the pizza by layering the ingredients into like a bowl basically, and they put the dough over the top and they bake it like that, and then they bring it over to your plate and they put it back so the dough's on the bottom. They take off the the bowl, and then you have like a pizza pie type thing where it's like almost like a pizza pot pie, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
I also want to give a really quick shout out to a pizza, chain. There's only 2 locations here in Chicago.
Papa John's?
No, called Dimo's, DIMO''S. And there's one in our neighborhood, and there's another one on the north side. We live kind of close to the Blue Line, kind of further west from the lake. But the important thing about this particular chain is that they have converted some of their ovens right now during the COVID-19 epidemic to manufacture plastic face shields for hospitals. So instead of making pizza, some of their ovens are actually making hospital equipment, which I didn't even know they could do, but there's been a lot of articles featuring them, especially in our local news. So I think it's really phenomenal what they're doing, and I've never eaten there before, but now because they are contributing with such kindness, I definitely want to try their stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great. I didn't know that. Karen Mack, how do you plan your travel days? Do you use spreadsheets or a calendar, or are you more fly by the seat of your pants? I'm a big planner. So I'd say that to start off, we typically have a spreadsheet.
I am also a planner.
That we use for
I am type A and Derek is type B, so we compromise.
So typically she'll create a spreadsheet that has things like how much we're spending on our hotels, how much we're spending on our tickets, because we try to kind of budget our expenses so we don't go overboard and we have something left over to actually spend on experiences once we get to a location. So we use a spreadsheet for that, and then we always kind of say that, you know, when we're going international and we're flying, we're going to be hit by jet lag if we're doing like a red eye. We don't want to do anything or have anything planned that's big and memorable on the first day that we're there. We want to kind of leave that as more of a open day to kind of go out, maybe explore a little bit of the neighborhood around the hotel that we're staying at. But otherwise, you know, if we end up losing the day because we take a nap and it turns into we just pass out, we're not going to be kicking ourselves.
The only exception to that is if you, so I'm not a big foodie. Derek definitely is the one that researches restaurants more, but knowing what restaurant you might want to go to on the first day so you don't have to spend a lot of time researching as soon as your boots hit the ground, that's going to be super helpful. Just because you want to make sure that you can eat, and especially if it's a brand new spot, you know, sometimes you might not want to be like wandering around searching for food. You might want to be like, okay, day 1, I'm going to eat this place. Maybe you won't make a reservation, but at least have a general sense of where you can acquire food.
Yeah, and I wouldn't do a big like must-hit dinner spot your first day anywhere.
That's not what I meant. No,
I know. I'm just saying. I would definitely try to do something a little bit more low-key that first day. That's what we typically do. You know, I think that if I look back at, like, when we went to Mendoza, for example, on our honeymoon, that was one of, like, the must-do restaurants was Francis Malman's restaurant in Mendoza. He's one of these guys who was, featured in Chef's Table and all of a sudden he's like, it's like really good Argentinian beef and steak, and I was like, we have to go here. And the only day that we could get a reservation was on the first day that we got there, which was a little bit unfortunate because we were kind of like scrambling to get there.
Yeah, because I think our flight was late and we had to check in, and we were like, you know, it was a really nice restaurant, and it takes a little time for me to look nice, so we were just like trying to get there urgently.
Yeah, so like, try not to do that to yourselves, but if you have limited time, I guess, you know, there's nothing you can do. And for really nice restaurants, you know, you really have to, you know, get it in advance. But yeah, I'd say that, you know, otherwise we kind of, you know, we'll schedule the things that you need to do in advance. So like when we were going to Amsterdam, we knew that we wanted to go to the Anne Frank house. In hindsight, with COVID taking off, we probably should not have done that, but we did. We're fine. It's been well over 2 weeks. We don't have it. We didn't get it. It's fine. But, you know, that's something that you need to get, thankfully. And that's something that you need to get tickets for and a spot in line in advance. So we bought tickets for that on the second day we were in Amsterdam.
For Anne Frank house?
Or was that the third day?
We bought it for the second day.
the second day. So we knew we didn't want to buy it for the first day because we were going to be exhausted, and we knew that. So we bought it for the next day, and so we knew what we were doing that day. And then when you look at places, we always look at kind of like geographically. Okay, what's by the Anne Frank house that we can kind of like pair with it, or maybe that's an indoor thing. Is there something outdoors that we want to do around that? So we kind of try to plan some big things and then some little things around it.
And the Anne Frank house is really close to a lot of great restaurants and like cafes in Amsterdam.
Coffee shops have a different connotation.
Coffee shops are different in Amsterdam.
Yeah. Herbs.
Herbs. So Winkel 43 is a restaurant that we went to when we were in Amsterdam in 2014. And I really, really wanted to go back on this trip because I thought the food was excellent, and especially the apple pie is famous. Yep. And so that's only a few blocks from the Anne Frank house. So we were like, okay, we'll couple that together with our trip to the Anne Frank house and then a meal. So just looking at a map in advance and understanding what you can pair together so that way you don't spend a lot of time bebopping all over the city is good for itinerary planning. But anyway, so beyond just to kind of carry through to, once you're actually there, I tend to try to plan like one bigger thing per day so that way it leaves a little bit of flexibility. And I really actually struggle with booking tickets in advance. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes for a place like the Anne Frank house, you have to book in advance in order to be able to get in while you're there. However, I like whenever possible to plan things based on the weather. So I'd like a museum day to be when it's supposed to be raining. I'd like to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower on the nicest day that we're in Paris because it's cold and windy up there, and you want to make sure that it's as sunny and warm as possible that day. So I think it's one of those things where you just have to be smart about it and understand your travel style and your like travel partner's travel style too. So if it were up to me, I'd probably plan out a lot more things. But Derek really especially because he loves photography, he loves to have that extra time in certain places to wander and discover.
Well, yeah, and the thing about that is that, for me, anybody who's really into photography, there's kind of like 2 times of the day that you really want to be out taking pictures, right? It's sunrise, sunset. So kind of in between those, great, let's go do whatever you want. But, I kind of know that, an hour before sunset, I want to be at the location that I want to be shooting so I can get, golden hour, blue hour, and all that stuff. And, she's come to realize that can be a little bit trying, so she knows she might need to have a snack because dinner has to be sometime after sunset or way before sunset, one or the other for me. Or we just need to split up and she does her thing and I do my thing. But, with limited days in the location, I really want to be able to like set up and really capture some sunsets because you never know when it's going to be a bust or when it's going to be really good, and you don't want to miss a beautiful sunset or sunrise just because of a miscommunication with your travel partner if you're into photography. That's
or whatever your equivalent is. So Karen Mack is saying that she was in Amsterdam last summer. That's awesome. There's a pancake place next door to the Anne Frank house. That was great. I think we maybe saw that actually.
I think you're talking about the Pancake Bakery.
No, she's talking about the Pancake Bakery is also a really famous pancake house, but it's not right next door to the Anne Frank house. There was one remember the one that had like the little, like, what is this called, where you put your head through and take a picture and stuff? There's definitely a pancake place right there. But Dutch pancakes are very popular in general.
Yeah, so we actually did like the pancake. What was it? It had a pig logo.
The Happy Pig.
The Happy Pig, which was pretty good. That was by our hotel. And the Dutch pancake is more like a crepe. And then there's another place that does the little pancakes that we didn't really get to try until we got to the airport and we tried them. They're pretty decent. I kind of wish I had tried them at the Albert Cube Market, which is where
we were only in Amsterdam for like 3.5 days before we had to fly home.
We had to skedaddle.
But that's what happens when you decide to go during coronavirus. Okay, so Eric Brown is saying Amsterdam is high on his list. He bumped it for Prague in February. Loved Prague, Amsterdam, but Amsterdam and Berlin would be on my next trip to Europe. You know what? I would love to go to Prague. I've never been. It's really high on me and Derek's list. And once this travel ban ends, hopefully we can get there pretty quickly. I've heard amazing things about Prague. So if you have any recommendations, let us know.
Yeah, I really want to go to Prague as well. That's been high on my list for a long time. And Graham was asking at the beginning of this, like, you know, when you guys disagree on the location, what happens? Well, I wanted to go to Prague, I think, since, you know, over 10 years ago, and it still keeps getting shot down by her. So one of these days we'll get there.
Not shot down. It's coming. So then also Eric was asking how many states and countries we've been to. We haven't counted the countries, but I did count the states, and for me, I only have 16 states left to visit. And I was planning, praying to do it in 2020.
Yeah.
However, that is likely not going to happen anymore. So we'll hopefully do it in 2021. I'll cross them all the rest of them off the list. But I'm definitely keeping my fingers and toes crossed that that's going to be an accomplishment I can brag about in the next year or two.
Yeah, and I saw your question, Eric, and I was kind of like trying to count in my head, and I'm pretty sure I'm a little over 20, maybe 22 countries at this point that I've been to.
He's been to more than me because
Yeah.
he's gotten to do a few work trips that I have not been able to join him on.
Yeah.
So I'm probably
Around 20.
maybe less than 20 actually, but
Yeah.
I've been to a lot of places within certain countries, like gone back to France a lot, been all over France, been all over the UK,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
And then, you know, one of the things though to do that, and one of the things I'd like to do one of these days to just get that number like maybe buoyed a little bit, is kind of island hop around the Caribbean would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
To kind of, you know, see a bunch of different, you know, small island nations, which would be kind of neat. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So.
And
we'll
if
see.
Derek ever gets a sabbatical, maybe we'll do a adult backpacking trip around Europe too or something.
Yeah.
Be able to hit some of the Eastern Europe stuff. Okay, what am I missing?
So Gallivanting Gals is saying that she thinks there's a place called Pancakes.
Yes.
And yeah, I just looked it up there. Yeah, that's the one that we were thinking about. It's Pancakes by the Western Marine. So.
Yeah. And then Eric, you've been to 43 states. You only have a few left to go. Only 7 more.
That's awesome.
What are the 7? I'm curious. Let us know what the 7 are that you still have to go to. But only 7 countries. Man, I mean, I think you at this point you should like cross off all the 50 states first. Then both Amsterdam and Berlin are great cities to visit from Gallivanting Gals. I've never been to Berlin either. I would love to go. I hear that the art scene too, and like the street art there is really cool.
Yeah, so I've been to Germany for work before. Liz has never been to Germany. We were actually, before, like, when we were planning out our Amsterdam trip, we had actually planned to stop over into, like,
Munich?
well, no, we were talking about
Cologne.
Munich, but we were going to
go
to Cologne, Germany, and be in Germany for a little bit, but there's a pretty bad outbreak of COVID there, so we decided that we're not going to go into Germany, and in fact that we were just going to stick around Amsterdam the whole time to kind of limit, you know, our exposure, since while we were there, you know, the coronavirus wasn't that bad in Amsterdam specifically. Most of the outbreak that had happened within the Netherlands was further south, down near Eindhoven, so we were kind of like, okay, we're not going to go south, we're not going to head over east into Germany, just kind of stick around here and kind of explore. So
yeah, we were using data every single day. The Johns Hopkins dashboard was definitely really appreciated in mid-March when we were there.
Yeah, real quick, Mark is taking off. He's got some stuff to do before Walter's World chat at 3, which is the members chat. We just became members at Walter's World yesterday, so this will be our first chat.
Somehow we weren't members before, which I think surprised everybody on the chat, including us. We really thought that we were, but we wanted to make sure we were tuning into that chat at 3, so we'll see hopefully you there. Thanks for joining. And yeah, sounds like Gallivanting Gals. We'll see you guys there too. That'll be super fun. We'll all just get to keep talking and hanging out.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Walter's World was on our live stream on Thursday. It was so great to have Mark and Jocelyn tune in. Hopefully you guys, so just so everybody knows on the chat still, we do these live streams on Thursday nights at 7 Central and then Sunday mornings at 11 Central. It's just a lot of us fellow grounded travelers jumping on and chatting, staying happy and healthy during this epidemic. So I really appreciate everybody on today. I think it gives me and Derek an outlet to continue our travel passion and connect with everybody, because what's super important to both of us is learning about the world and connecting with people, and I love that we've been able to discover this live chat functionality in order to do that.
So Eric is saying that he still needs to get to Alaska, Hawaii, Utah, Iowa, New Mexico, North Dakota, and Vermont. Well, that's awesome. Eric, I don't know if you're into national parks, but I think there's quite a few national parks you could hit up if you were trying to in those places. Alaska has a ton of them. I think Hawaii does as well. Utah has some phenomenal, Arches, Canyonland, Zion. Those are all phenomenal places to go to in Utah.
Yeah, buy a national parks pass and have at it. I think so. Utah is great. I also was just talking with folks. I can't remember if it was on Walter's World or not. Just about underrated U.S. cities, and one of my top ones right now is Salt Lake City. It is a really cool, growing, fun city, and it's got a lot of cool architecture. There's a lot of new breweries, craft breweries, including cider breweries, which I don't drink beer, but I do drink cider, and cool bars and restaurants. And I think that surprises a lot of people who kind of know about Mormonism and what Salt Lake City, which is what Salt Lake City is known for. But there's a lot more to discover there.
I would say they do still have specific laws around drinking and requiring you to buy, I think, food with your drinks or something like that. No, there's some law where maybe
I've definitely bought a drink without buying food, so I'm not. But definitely they'll tell you the laws. I don't if you go into a bar, I don't.
You're not gonna accidentally break it.
Yeah, I don't think you'll accidentally break it. They'll be
but they
no,
might require you to order food, and I think you might have to have a chair or something like that. I don't think they allow.
When I went to the cider brewery, I went to Mountain West Cider Brewery, which is really close to downtown, and definitely had some drinks without food. So hopefully, maybe that might be a law that got taken away really recently or something. And then Alaska and Hawaii, I still need to go to. Iowa, I'm not really sure what to recommend there. I've been there a bunch. But probably Iowa City is a good spot to visit. New Mexico, I've done a road trip all throughout western New Mexico, and my favorite memory from New Mexico is we stopped at a Burger King on the Navajo reservation out in the very, very far west of New Mexico, and in front of us, because we were in the drive-through line, in front of us somebody was on horseback ordering Burger King from the drive-through, which was so crazy to me as somebody who grew up in Chicago, but really cool to see. And then North Dakota, I have been canoeing down I think it's the Missouri River in North Dakota, and that's my favorite memory from visiting up there. But I did go in summertime. I would imagine it's pretty cold other times of the year. And Vermont is one of the ones that I have to go to as well. So hopefully I'll be able to make it up to Burlington or something like that. That was Burlington was definitely where I was planning to go in 2020 because I can get a flight there pretty easily. And then I've heard it's such a cool kind of hipster town to explore.
Yeah. But I think there's a number of places that we want to kind of like do a road trip on to kind of knock off a number of them. And I honestly, I don't know how many states I've been to. I haven't done the count.
Yeah, you'll need to count, and I need to count my countries. So maybe we'll do a hot update on Thursday when we've actually sat down and counted them all. So Eric, you're saying you have a good friend in Utah, so that one will be next. Yeah, that's a good idea, especially to visit your friends. North Dakota and Iowa will probably be the hardest. Yeah, especially because it's just hard to find flights to some of those. And Alaska and Hawaii are on my bucket list too, because I have not been to Alaska or Hawaii either. And I think before you joined, we were talking a little bit about Alaska with the group here in the chat. And Alaskan cruises can be a great way to see a lot of the beauty of Alaska, but it's a giant, giant state with a lot of cool national parks too. Yeah. So probably whatever you decide to do in Alaska will be a good choice. Same with Hawaii. Man, anything in Hawaii, I'm sure, is amazing. I was actually supposed to be in Hawaii now. What day is it today? I hadn't booked it, but my friend had booked, because I often fly standby. My friend had booked her tickets to Hawaii. We were supposed to go, actually I think it was on April 12th.
So next week.
So I was supposed to go next week to Hawaii, but that ain't happening.
Yeah, unfortunately. I was going to then tag along maybe, so we were going to see about
maybe.
that. Come in for the weekend or something. But
we were very lucky to not have had booked too many things, but we certainly had a lot of stuff planned, so we're right there with everybody who. And
as gallivanting gals would know, that's the beauty of having miles and things like that, where you can kind of book last second and not worry about it. So but yeah, it looks like a number of people are kind of like have things to do, and I know that we actually have some things to do before the 3:00.
Yep. Great.
Walter's World.
Thanks, Gallivanting Gals, for joining too, and thank you everybody on. This has been a really fun chat. As always, we're really pleased to see fellow like-minded travelers and connect with you guys. I hope you guys can come back on Thursdays and next Sunday too. And we just really have enjoyed this. I just want to say real quick, on Friday I put out an interview that I am continuing an interview series on my YouTube channel, talking to different friends of mine in different parts of the country and the world about what their coronavirus quarantine experience is like. And the one that I put out on Friday is with my friend Megan in New York City. And then I've also done some recordings with my friend in Seattle and another friend of mine who was in Argentina working, and she actually had to frantically get back to the U.S. Last week or something like that. So those are going to be coming out this week too, so make sure to watch those interviews if you're curious about what everybody else is experiencing too. And
Graham, who is or was on this, has also done an interview.
Yeah,
and
I interviewed Graham over in the UK about what it's like in England right now too.
Yep. So you can go check out any of those or any of the other things that she's done over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Thanks everybody, and bye Karen, bye Darlene, bye Alan, bye Eric. Great to see you guys.
Yep.
And we'll talk to y'all soon.
Peace.